Can we have Dr. Ankit Thakker on stage, please? Welcome, Dr. Ankit. I'd now like to welcome the members of the Fireside Chat. Sumanta Ray, Chief Marketing and Growth Officer, Medanta. Welcome, Sumanta. Let's hear it for Sumanta, please. Thank you. Zubin, Daruwalla, Senior VP Marketing and Business Development, Kokilaben, Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital. Welcome, Zubin. And last but not least, Ashish Bajaj, Chief Marketing Officer, Narayana Health. Welcome, Ashish. Dr. Ankit, over to you.
So, good evening, everybody. I am probably the last person today to welcome you to the Hospital Management Summit hosted by Economic Times. Thank you for all those of you still here. We have heard from a wide variety of speakers, esteemed guests today on multiple different topics. Over the next 30 minutes with this great panel, we will be diving a little bit deeper into the rise of consumerism in healthcare and strategies in marketing to stay relevant and competitive in the current times. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the panel with me. To my left, we have Mr. Sumanta Ray. Welcome. He is joining us from Delhi. Mr. Sumanta Ray is the Chief Marketing and Growth Officer at Medanta Hospitals. He is a very distinguished marketing professional with about 25 years in marketing, has been awarded amongst the 50 most influential marketing leaders and the top 50 most talented CMOs in India. He's a statistician by background and also went to business school at the Goa Institute of Management and the ISB. He's passionate about giving back and teaching the next generation and is visiting faculty at IIM Bangalore and GIM Goa as well. Join me in welcoming Sumanta. To his left is Mr. Zubin Daruwalla from Kokilaben Ambani Hospital. He's the Senior VP of Marketing and Business Development. Again, a healthcare veteran with rich and varied industry experience. Before his current role here at Kokilaben, he has worked with prestigious organizations like Johnson & Johnson, Frost & Sullivan, and Mr. Daruwalla is very passionate about children's health, cancer care, is a strong advocate of preventive and holistic wellness, and is a believer in word of mouth being the strongest form of marketing. Welcome, Mr. Daruwalla. And finally is Mr. Ashish Bajaj. He heads marketing at Narayana Health as the CMO there. He's a seasoned marketing professional, 10 plus years, 13 years of experience in marketing. He has developed go-to-market strategies of several startups who are now counted as the unicorns in this country. He was also the first to represent India at the Young Lions Media Competition at Cannes, and the only one from India to win the Media Gold Medal for his work with the WHO at Singapore. So with, welcome Ashish. So with this distinguished panel, we hope to get some good insights from them on marketing strategies. I think, healthcare in many ways is a very infant and still in a way a closeted industry as far as marketing is concerned. A lot of doctors are still shy of using the word marketing for lack of clarity on where the medical council stands on it. Hospitals have a divide between their non-profit and for-profit status. The community and the society at large has different expectations of altruism from healthcare. But be it as it may, I think, no matter what your objective or purpose is, marketing is something you need not be shy about. Religions market themselves, non-profits market themselves, the Red Cross markets itself. The three men on my left know that very well, and they are not shy of using the M word. So let me start by asking Mr. Daruwalla to invite him to share his general thoughts and about what are your philosophies basically on healthcare marketing.
Hello. Thank you very much, Ankit. I think you really opened the door for the discussion on marketing. I think, friends, if you look at marketing from a healthcare point of view, it's one of the most important things, because as a patient, unless you want the best treatment, you want the best outcome. Every individual patient, whether it's the smallest toothache you have, or you are into dire trouble with cardiac or cancer, you want to make sure that your doctor is the best doctor, right? You want to come out of that problem at the earliest and the best way. And that is where the marketing comes into perspective, because marketing in healthcare, unlike other places, it's making you aware about your choices. It's making you aware about what are your options which you have, which is why I said that word of mouth, because if somebody has gained by taking treatment somewhere and he has benefited, that is what you want to know about. So even today, when we look at online marketing for health services, and when patients come to our hospitals, though they would have been suggested by their friends or relatives or by doctors, they go onto Google, they check the Google reviews and want to make sure that he is meeting the right doctor. So end of the day, it is very important, number one. Coming back to where I have been for the last 10 to 12 years in terms of Kokilaben Hospital, we have kept it very simple. We have decided to keep marketing very simple, and so we have made it something which is fulfilling the need of the customer, and that's what it is, patient-centric. So everything we do just kind of germinates from there. So if you look at our logo, the hospital logo, and below that the tagline, it says every life matters, and that's what we are aiming at, to make sure that every patient is given the right treatment, and everything flows from there. So when you talk about patient centricity, you talk about fulfilling the need, you can't be on any wrong track, and that's our marketing strategy. And from that emanates a lot of our guiding philosophies. For example, one of them is the full-time system that we have got. So we are one of those hospitals in Bombay which is, the doctors are all full-time only with Kokilaben. They don't practice outside, or outside doctors don't come. So the patient is at peace of mind that my doctor is around here, whether I go in the morning or evening, or I'm in treatment and something suddenly happens to me when I'm admitted, my doctor is around me. So that is one of the guiding philosophies which we have. The second one is what we call in marketing strategy is bridging the gap. So yes, all the hospitals do offer different services, whether it is cancer or orthopedic or anything else. But whether it's offered in the way it should be offered, because when we started the hospital, our philosophy was we want to have the patients in India, in Western India, in Bombay, wherever, to have the same treatment which would have been given to them. They had to go at anywhere else in the world, whether it be Europe or US or wherever. So keeping that in mind, we saw certain specialties which may not really be profit driven. For example, we have this Center for Children Heart, where children with congenital defects are treated. Now that from day one we knew is never going to even be break even. It will be always a loss making. But we decided to have the best of that facility and benchmark it with the best of the hospitals across the world. And you won't believe the tariff in that department from 2009 when we started till now has not been changed at all. For the last 13 years we continue with the same tariff. So, but we realized that it's required in Western India, children heart treatment, we went for it. Similarly, we saw that, let's say for transplantation, like liver transplant, we had doctors coming from Delhi and Chennai and operating, and then they would go back to the respective institutes we felt that it was important to have a full-time center over here where the doctor is attached to the hospital, he's there all the time. You want your doctor to be there when you're admitted, right till the time you're discharged, otherwise you feel nervous. So we again, kind of bridge the gap by making sure that we had a full-time team. So for short of time, just to summarize, marketing in healthcare is very important because it creates awareness. Today, when we are in, very close to the World Heart Day, it's about sudden cardiac death, and we are seeing that happening more and more in, younger population. So creating awareness of that, you can call it either marketing, but at the same time, it's important. So marketing in healthcare is one of the most important things. When I look at my hospital, we have always focused on fulfilling the need of the patient and kept it as simple as that. With that, I would like to hand the dais back to Dr. Ankit. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think if everyone thought of keeping the needs of the patient first and focusing on that simple fact, I think a lot of things would take care of itself, and I congratulate you for that philosophy. So Ashish, this was kind of, the veteran's perspective on the philosophy of healthcare and the importance of patient centricity, the selection of services. But since we are trying to, we have gathered here today to talk about marketing, a lot of us physicians don't, understand the jargon which you use. It's maybe Shark Tank was the first time some of us heard LTV and CAC and CTA and all those jargons. Could you help us cut through a little bit of science of technical marketing and explain what do you think is the context of healthcare within the science of marketing?
No, absolutely, Ankit. Just before I answer that, I think big round of applause for Dr. Ankit. He's our moderator tonight. I think we couldn't open it with it. I think before we come to that, those dreadful jargons, I think from a hospital management and hospital marketing point of view, how Mr. Zubin clarified that how it is important in terms of information as well. The another thing that needs to be looked at it, all the marketing starts with the patient in the industry. It has to revolve around the consumer first. So there is already a journey that you need to drive between a consumer to the patient. From every industry point of view, how you look at, how you bring the consumer in the center is the win. Now information, if you are able to do that change and you start looking at consumer to patient as a journey, because all of the hospitals are all trying to do one thing, is that they give the best possible health care. The win for any hospital will be how you look at that journey of that consumer. When he or she wants hospitalization or when he or she becomes the patient. So that's, I think, for anyone and everyone in terms of marketing to think about how hospital marketing should evolve. Now coming back to your question on how do we look at these CACs, LTVs of the world. The evolution of medical technology, and we were discussing before we came in here, has been like, it's paradigm, it has been a major shift. It helms the kind of technology interventions that are required and to saving lives has been happening. But the evolvement of how the journey of the consumer to patient and after patient to back to a consumer, once that happens, that has to be tracked within a hospital ecosystem. Once you start tracking that, it becomes very much important. Why, I tell you, it's not that, and no offense to any industry, it's not just like a telecom industry where I need to sell you another postpaid as per your usage. It's about saving lives. Now, if I can tailor it made to you in terms of what could be your possible cases or diseases down further, that is where you need to look into these aspects of basically drilling down their entire journey. So your LTV, lifetime value, of course, when you talk about this as a process of looking at and improving your efficiencies and productivity within the corporate part of a healthcare ecosystem, these should become very relevant for any hospital management, because you should know what are you spending in terms of getting from a consumer to a patient. You should know what is that consumer talks to you in terms of looking at entire ecosystem. So every year you might not be going to hospital more than 4 times. That's the average, that the industry notion that goes with. But have you started looking at the LTV, lifetime value of the consumer, in terms of not just with the consumer, with the family as well? So all of these comes, I think that's a good way how app ecosystem players have started evaluating a consumer. That eye is much more required to start following all of these CAC and LTV matrices. So I rest my case here. It's important that we shift, the shift has to happen from the consumer to the patient first, and then the rest of the journey.
So thank you, Ashish. I think that was enlightening and food for thought for a lot of people. I also picked out on one thing which I'll lead up to my follow-up question was, trying to think about what the patient wants and what, trying to think about personalizing that offering. So, Mr. Dey, can I ask you that question of how do you see marketing being personalized in the times to come, and do you think that we will be able to enhance patient experience with a more personalized form of marketing?
Thanks, thanks, Ankit. So, in terms of personalization, I think Ashish touched upon a part of it, which is data-driven and LSE, which is more from the acquisition perspective. But also, anybody who has gone to a hospital, and which is a hospital or any kind of medical stuff, there's a whole host of patient data that is available with the hospital, and which at a lot of time is not correlated, even at the hospital level, at the patient level. There is no correlation of data, and the patient may be unaware of many of the stuff which he or she may be carrying. So one kind of personalization is data-driven personalization at a CRM level, where one can look at cohorts, one can look at areas where using biomarkers, and that level of personalization, and to make people aware, make patients aware of their proclivity of a proclivity of a disease building up. That kind of marketing, I would feel that is the kind of personalization that probably we are seeing slowly across the industry. The other thing is to build, marketing is not about only acquisition. It is also about, building products. So today, we largely talk about marketing in the construct of curative treatment. When somebody comes into the hospital and they get treated. But the needs pre-post, the post-treatment care, home care, continuity of care, managed care, these are various levels of personalization that is coming in, and slowly, as I believe, that's my opinion, that over time, probably only critical acute treatment will happen at the hospitals. It may take 5-10 years or whatever. All the pre and post will happen in some form, either digitally or at home. And accordingly, products and services. For example, I was reading yesterday an article, I think in ET, about the geriatric population increasing. Now, what is the thought on creating products, personalizing to the need of the geriatric population, who may not always be admitted in a hospital, but that's healthcare. That's a very large chunk of population. I think by 2030, 2 of our states, the geriatric population would be higher than the earning population. So what are we doing about it from a healthcare perspective? So that is the second area. Third is also the larger hospitals and the larger hospital networks. In terms of personalization, many hospitals are doing it in their own way. For example, at Medanta in Gurgaon, the flagship hospital is in Gurgaon. So there are around 50 housing societies, or RWAs as we call it, in Gurgaon, where we run the medical room, where there's a nurse stationed full-time, 12 hours, basic treatment happens. So that's personalization. That's because it's almost like a physician at home. Doctors come in, turn by turn. So that's reaching to where the patient stays, and there may not be a major, curative or tertiary care treatment coming out of it, but small, especially chronic care, is being looked at. And I'm sure, it's not that Medanta is the only one. Others are doing it in their own ways. So I think these would be the kind of personalizations, Ankit, which we will see as we go along, as we go ahead.
Thank you. So with, personalizing healthcare, and we have spoken about patient so far, the other key stakeholder in healthcare, of course, is the physician, the doctor. So very quickly, if Mr. Daruwalla had alluded to their full-time system, which they take a lot of pride upon, and how do you market a hospital to a physician and get him to buy into your idea, and how does that whole thing fit into your strategy?
Sure, Ankit. Yeah, so I think that full-time model is something which, for some reason, is never practiced in Bombay. We have a doctor who goes from one hospital to another. That has always been traditionally the thing. And now with the kind of traffic and things like that, it's like next to impossible for a doctor to really sit and work. Though if you see in some of the key hospitals across the city, Jupiter or even Hinduja or there, some of the doctors are attached more or less full-time to the hospital. So it's a good question that, when we started our hospital, we had this system of full-time from day one. And except for just one or two, doctors, key doctors like Dr. Jamshed Dalal or, everybody else was a complete fresher. And like our entire cancer team came from Tata, but they had never, seen a patient in their OPD. So for us to actually, put them on the stage and market them, or, not market them, but market their services and, make sure that patients trust them and they start coming to them was a big challenge. But in the end, when we look at it 10 years down, it was a right decision to take. It helped us with our original thought of, putting the patient in the middle, fulfilling his need. Because today when we have patients coming, they like this full-time system that a doctor is there available round the clock. If there's any problem, he's there. And because the doctor is full-time attached, his level of dedication goes up, exponentially. When at 2 o'clock in the night, you have the doctor coming. If there's an emergency procedure, he's there. So I think that from a point of view of personalization, you can't get more personal than having the doctor available to you 24/7. Like what, is done in the housing societies. I think it's a beautiful model. You have a nurse there, and and a patient having a problem, he knows there is somebody. Similarly, in a hospital, when you know that your doctor is accessible, that makes a huge difference. And I think that has helped us to really, make sure that, we are on the right track in terms of personalizing our, healthcare offering.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So digressing a little bit and trying to cover a wider scope, there has been a lot of push by the government of India recently trying to make India a very attractive medical tourism hub, and with NCR being the hub within India of medical tourism, I would invite Mr. Ray to share his views on medical tourism and what strategies to succeed and pitfalls to avoid.
Sure. So I think Government of India is stepping up in a major way as far as medical tourism is concerned. I think there's this Heal in India program done by the central government, where, so I'm privy to having seen their portal. They're creating a pan-India portal of hospitals and doctors, along with, and they're trying to bring insurers on board, where any person who seeks treatment in India abroad can go to the Government of India site. It's an authorized site, so, and it's a neutral site. And where you could choose which treatment, which hospital, etc. But I think the larger context is that in India, unfortunately, medical tourism is controlled or managed by healthcare facilitators. And that's a reality. All hospitals are aware, we are all aware, but there's not much that is done about it. And that causes a lot of issues with patients, with everybody. So I think, and I was, last month I was in Africa as part of the Ministry of Health, Government of India's outreach to Tanzania and Kenya. And I happened to meet a lot of doctors, a lot of hospitals, the ministers of health, and so on and so forth. And they, at a fundamental level, what they are seeking is some kind of a level playing field where they have the scope of capacity building and they build up stuff out there. So I think the model of engagement for medical tourism as we go along is to be there in those markets, help them build capacities, because if everybody coming over long periods of time is not sustainable. There has been pushbacks from local doctor association. I mean, Bangladesh is a case. Indian doctors are not welcome at this point of time. So unless the Indian hospitals go out, reach, it could be some kind of joint programs, it could be running a department, setting a department, running hospitals. Unless that kind of expansion happens, probably in a few years this will come under more stress. But the positive thing is the government is going that way. And like I mentioned, that since I was part of the delegation, I'm privy to certain areas where the government is pushing hard. So once Indian hospitals start working with hospitals and not so much have a reliance on facilitators, I think it will, the medical tourism scope of India will grow manifold.
I think that is very, very interesting. I have too many follow-up questions, but we don't have time for that, and I think we'll take it up outside. I have one last question, which is very interesting to me. I am mindful that we are running out of time. Do you guys want me to stop or ask that last question? Thank you. So Ashish, this one's for you. There is a lot of debate and a lot of diverse views on the new healthcare startups, the marketplaces, people trying to use hospitals as cloud facilities, and there are very, very diverse views within the establishment and within the tech industry and startups. And with you having played a role in both those sides, I want you to help us balance and share your views on how do you think healthcare establishments can coexist with the new health startups.
See, the healthcare market in India is huge, and globally also it's one of the biggest industry. Now, when you talk about that, there is always room for or gap for new businesses within the regime to come in. Now, once they come in, there are certain who do it very, very right, and there are certain who do it in a way of just seeking some evaluations. So, leaving all of that as a side, absolutely, because there is a room of both of them coexisting, because one looks at the gaps that have been built because of the hospital management in a way like what Mr. Ray said, what Daruwalla said, that there is in terms of personalization, looking at a different view for a patient, but there was still, because of our population and requirement, there was still a lot of rooms that was available for other businesses to pop up and look at solving for the consumer, and it's good for the ecosystem if they coexist, because there is more readily available healthcare for patients, consumers, however you may want to call it. Second, there is, of course, when you kind of working in the industry which is around your person's health, so your responsibility also has to be epitome like how hospital looks at it. So absolutely there is room, and if they start working together, I think they can very nicely solve last miles. Because the problem right now is you can't have infinite flagship hospitals, correct? You can't have doctors working more than 24 hours. So that's the limitation that we all are working toward in right now. So that helps you in a way to actually increase the entire ecosystem's productivity. So I think it's a good mix, it's a good handshake, and both sides can definitely work together in terms of bringing, and coming from earlier my experience, it can be done beautifully.
Thank you. So let's coexist is the takeaway and the last word from Ashish. And with this, I will have to wrap up our chat. And I would like to thank the whole panel for taking time, and Mr. Ray and Mr. Bajaj have specially flown in to be with us today. So a special thank you to both of them. And I would just like to, say that perhaps at a later date, I would be very happy to do one more session where we talk not about just about being competitive in the healthcare industry, but about being collaborative in the healthcare industry. That is a discussion for another day. Thank you so much for accommodating us for a little extra than you were supposed to, and have a good day. Thank you.